In this experiment, we're going to test whether we can turn radiant energy, light energy, into thermal energy. And here's the equipment we're going to need. We're going to have 2 flasks. One is black and one is silver. We're going to need 2 thermometers that we can insert into each flask. And then we're going to put the same amount of water into each flask. Then we will turn on a very bright light bulb, which will give us our light energy, and we will measure the temperature over a period of time to see if our light energy indeed will transform into the thermal energy in the water inside these 2 flasks. Notice that the flasks are different, and I'd ask you to predict which one of these 2 flasks, the silver or the black, will be able to transform more of that light energy into thermal energy. In this beaker, you can see that I have 200 mils of water. So I'm going to pour that 200 mils of water into the silver flask. And now we're going to pour 200 mils of water into the black flask. So both flasks have the exact same amount of water. So now we will insert the thermometers, which are held in place by a stopper, into each tube. And we will push the stopper down snugly. Let's set up our data page. We're going to be on page 231, and it says at the top, Lab, Absorption of Radiant Energy. Because I was using a particularly warm light bulb, particularly high light bulb, where I actually measured with different time intervals than are listed on this data page. So we're going to cross those times out and change them. We'll have our initial temperature reading at 0 minutes, and then we're going to read 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 minutes. And then we will record the temperature of the silver flask in this column and the temperature of the black flask in that column. Unfortunately, when I took our data, I always read the black flask first, followed by the silver flask. So make sure you note the first temperature I read will always be the black flask, and then I will read the silver flask. Here's our general setup with the lamp on. All right, so here we are set up with our experiment, 2 flasks, 2 thermometers, and a light ready to go on. Let's get the initial thermometer readings. Here in the black flask, the reading is 20 degrees, and in the silver flask, the reading is also 20 degrees. All right, we are ready to turn on the light, and I will also start my watch. Here's the setup from the side. You can see that the light bulb is equal distant from each of the flasks. All right, we're now going to read the black thermometer, and it looks like it's up to 29. And we'll read the silver thermometer, and it's up to 22. All right, we're going to turn our light back on and start our timer again. All right, we're going to be reading it now at 4 minutes. And the temperature of the black flask is 37 degrees, and of the silver flask is 24.5 degrees. All right, we're going to read it here at 6 minutes. It'll focus. Temperature of the black flask is almost 45 degrees, and temperature of the silver flask is 27 degrees. All right, now we're going to take a reading at 8 minutes. Temperature of the black flask is 50.5 degrees C, and of the silver flask is 28.5 degrees C. All right, we're going to be taking our last reading at 10 minutes. And here we go. You can see we're going to be reading the black flask, and its temperature is 56.5, and the silver flask is 31, we'll call it 31 degrees C. Now that we have finished our data gathering, let's check your temperatures. Make sure you were able to write them down correctly. And then we're going to calculate our change in temperature. And that means we're going to calculate how much our flasks have risen in temperature, always compared to the original temperature. So we started out at 20, so there's no change in temperature for either one of these. And then it went up by 2 degrees, 22 minus 20, and then 24 minus 20, which means it went up by 4.5 degrees. 27 compared to 20, it went up 7 degrees. 28.5 minus 20, it went up 8.5 degrees. And finally, 31 minus 20, it went up 11 degrees. For a black flask, 29 minus 20, it went up 9 degrees. 37 minus 20, it went up 17 degrees. 45 minus 20, it went up 25 degrees. 50.5 minus 20, it went up 30.5, and the last one, 56.5 minus 20, it went up 36.5 degrees. I'll leave those up there for a moment. Make sure you get all your data written down correctly. So what we're going to graph, what we're going to look at, is we want to know over this 10-minute period, how did the temperature change? So we're going to have a graph with our time on the x-axis, our temperature on the y-axis, and we'll have 2 lines, one for the temperature change for the silver flask and one for the temperature change for the black flask. For your y-axis, you do not have to start your temperature at 0. In fact, I might start it at, let's say, 15, and then you won't have all of that blank space on your graph. That's everything you need to finish it up.